Today I will be talking about second language articulatory pronunciation training in synchronous video-based distance education. What does that all mean? Let's get into it. So, for some introductory information, spoken language is multimodal, which means it involves more than just auditory cues. It also involves tactile, visual, and articulatory ones. Similarly to Felicity and Adeline, we were wondering how could we kind of make, similarly to everyone, we were wondering how we could kind of make the most out of this synchronous video-based education structure that we've had to move to during pandemic times. So regarding this multimodal input about one's own articulations, can second language speakers make use of simultaneous visual and tactile cues for pronunciation learning specifically? So that's something that we keep in mind. Native German speakers who are learning English often struggle specifically with the VW sound contrast, so the contrast between that bilabial W sound and the V. Specifically, or especially rather, in KW consonant clusters, as in the beginning of the word question. And the acquisition of these consonant clusters tends to be more complex and less studied as compared to these sounds on their own. So, moving on to my research hypothesis and talking a bit about the conditions in our study. Real-time video feedback and self-monitoring on Zoom, such as if you were to look at your own video feed in our Zoom room right now, might heighten participants' proprioceptive awareness. So that's their awareness of where their body is in space and time, and for our purposes specifically, their awareness of where their articulators are. So this is as speakers simultaneously experience all these tactile, auditory, and visual cues about their movements. So we hypothesize that specific articulatory pronunciation training in this VW contrast, combined with video feedback and self-monitoring of that feedback, can help our learners improve their pronunciation in this VW contrast, and also hopefully in the consonant W contrast, or consonant W cluster, with potential generalization to consonant R onset. So in this table on the right over here, you'll see our 4 conditions for our study, if I can find my cursor. So participants' condition varied on whether or not they received that specific pronunciation training and whether or not they had that video feedback and self-monitoring. So, regarding our methodology, each participant's experience consisted of 4 Zoom sessions outlined in Table 2 on the right. So all participants had an interview 1, a group lesson, and this is where those 4 different conditions were realized by the same first native English speaker. Me, I was the instructor. And then 2 post-tests. All of these interviews consisted of different tasks that were aimed to elicit a variety of controlled to more spontaneous speech. So we had free speech interview style questions, a picture description task, and a word list reading task. And in our group lessons, all groups consisted of a discussion around COVID and social media. It's a relevant topic. It was easy to connect on that ground, but for the appropriate groups, there was an additional component of pronunciation training. So on the bottom right over here, you'll see a screen cap of one of these examples of pronunciation training where we talked about minimal pairs. And regarding some of the methodology for some of the auditory rating we've had done, we had 2 native English speakers do a PROT rating experiment where they were given clips of our target words and asked to rate the target segments on 2 different levels. So on whether or not these segments were categorically, whether or not they sounded like a V or a W, and also on a scale of 1 to 6, whether or not they sounded non-native to native-like. So regarding our results so far, we've analyzed the reading task of our critical conditions, so those participants, and that's a subset of 18 out of 50 words per interview. Our summarized results for all VW targets we have roughly 2,300 judgments for this, what we've analyzed so far. So our categorical accuracy ratings for these VW targets started out near ceiling level at the beginning of the study at pretest, but they did increase from 95% to 98 and 99% at post-test, so we see some slight improvement there. Additionally, the average goodness ratings for these VW targets also saw some slight improvement at post-test. And additionally, the rater's reaction time decreased for these singular target phonemes at post-tests, meaning for our native English speakers, rating got easier and quicker when these words were from the post-tests, which shows improvement, slight improvement. Additionally, our results for both these individual segments and these consonant W clusters are shown in figures 2 and 3, which I'll discuss in a moment, but we see for both categorical and these scale ratings, W improved the most strongly, W on its own. And as for consonant clusters, specifically, we saw W and KW consonant clusters starting off with the lowest accuracy and showing the strongest gains on post-test. So in figure 2, this is our categorical rating, so whether or not a sound sounded like a V or a W to our raters. So we see slight improvement for all of these categories. And as for figure 3, our goodness rating, we see something similar. Every item by the final post-test shows at least some improvement on a scale of whether or not it sounded non-native-like to native-like. So on to my discussion. There were some limitations to the study, so recruitment is always an issue, and a lot of our participants were already quite proficient and near that VW contrast ceiling at session 1. Additionally, similarly, we did have a limited number of participants because pandemic. Regarding future analysis that will be conducted, we're going to be comparing our participants in non-critical conditions to test whether the gains that we've observed at post-test are indeed results of our articulatory pronunciation training and feedback, as opposed to not being because of that. We're also going to be analyzing our other tasks. So again, so far we've analyzed the wordless task, which was our more controlled speech, but we're also going to be analyzing the free speech interview questions and the picture description task, because we expect that the differences in the gains between our 4 conditions are going to be more pronounced in these less controlled, more spontaneous speech style tasks. Additionally, we are going to do visual coding of the articulatory speech gestures that I've been talking about in Elon at a reduced speed with looped repetition. This is going to be a more challenging aspect of coding because a lot of the lip movements are transient and vary a lot depending on the speaker. But that's going to be fun when we get to it. And regarding future research, potentially using lower proficiency speakers might be beneficial for this sort of research in the future. And also just simply trying to recruit second language English speakers with different native language backgrounds would be something to explore in the future. Here are my selected references, and real quick, just a huge thanks to everyone who has contributed and helped out. Couldn't have done it without every single entity on this list, and special thanks to Sarah for all of her help. All right, and that is my presentation.